He calms the storm that's inside my soul. Isn't love beautiful? Today we will be reviewing the Gypsy Rose Blanchard prison tapes. I believe this is episode 5. Grab your wine and listen to some things that we are going to tell you about Gypsy Rose.
Okay, so Gypsy Rose Prison Confessions, episode 5. This was an episode that really had 2 parts to it that they sort of kept intermingling between each other. So I separated it out into the 2 parts just to make it flow a little bit easier while I'm telling you what went on. So the first part, and really the Gypsy keeps a secret, was the big thing at the beginning. So I'll get to that at the end. And I'll go into the main part of the story, which was the crime itself, once Dee Dee was found. So we all know that Dee Dee was found initially because of the Facebook post that Gypsy had posted, the bitch is dead, and all sorts of other stuff. So that sort of alerted the authorities that there's something going on. They went over to the house, found Dee Dee dead. What I didn't realize initially when they found her was that they thought they knew Dee Dee was dead, but then they thought that Gypsy was missing, that somebody had actually taken her or kidnapped her. So they were very concerned that this poor girl's out there without her wheelchair, without her meds. So everybody's sort of focusing on what happened to Gypsy. Gypsy knew that they knew, or that they thought that she was missing. Her concern wasn't that she was going to get caught for the murder. Her big concern was that if she got caught, she was going to get put back into the same situation she just got out of, except for somebody different. So that's what was running through her mind. So the way they were able to track down Gypsy and Nicholas was they got a search warrant for Gypsy's Facebook. So that's where they got a little bit more idea of what was going on, but they also, more importantly, were able to get the IP address of Nicholas, found out where he lived, and that's how they got caught. So one morning they woke up, the house was surrounded, cops, armored vehicles, everything, people screaming for Nicholas to surrender. That's how they woke up. So they're looking out the window, they wondering what's going on. And their idea was, okay, let's hide in the closet. So they hid in the closet to come up with their stories. So apparently they were in this closet for about 15 minutes trying to get their stories together. And the story that they came up with, and this was their big plan, was that Dee Dee had kicked Gypsy out of the house, and Nicholas had just come by to pick her up and bring her back to Wisconsin. What happened after that? Well, we don't know. Who knows? So that was their big plan. So Gypsy surrendered first. She walked out. They immediately put her in handcuffs, put her in a cop car, and drove her away. So they get down to the police station. She gets put in her own interview room. Nicholas gets put in his own interview room. And what was interesting was that they were actually showing the actual clips of the interview, so you could see exactly how Gypsy was acting, along with exactly what she was saying. And initially, the guy came in to interview her. He's like, "I got to tell you, your mother's dead." And Gypsy was acting like she had no idea what he was talking about. She's like, "What? Huh? What? Are you sure?" So she was just immediately denying everything. In her mind, and this is what she said, this is out of her words during the interview, her mind, she was sticking to the plan that her and Nicholas had come up with in their 15 minutes in the closet. So they have her doing this interview, and then they move over to Nicholas. Well, Nicholas is over here just spilling the beans. He's telling them everything from start to finish, no hesitation, no lying, no nothing. This is what happened. She's over there lying, making believe she's, has no idea what happened. The one thing I found interesting with Nicholas, though, was that he, at one point, did say, the only reason I did this was because of Gypsy. That he would not have done this if it wasn't for her. It was the only way that they could be together. And he said that several times. He did it so that they could be together. But he never, even for one moment, hesitated. He's like, yep, I did it, I admit it. And she's over there denying everything. So then it shows her in the room by herself, freaking out, and then the guy comes back in, and she's like, all right, I lied. I lied, so I have to come up with the truth. So then she lies again. And she said that, I don't know why he did it, but I know that Dee Dee hated him. So she's sort of putting it on him, like, okay, he must have done this because she hated him, so this was the only way that they could be together. So that was her story, and she stuck with that story for the longest time. And the other thing that was interesting that the detective said was that when they arrested them, or when they surrounded the house, and when Gypsy walked out of the house, he was like, oh boy, she's walking, this is now going to get interesting. This is a brand new twist, a brand new turn, because they thought that she was not able to walk, and that they were not expecting her to walk out of the house. So that part of it, she, even going through her initial arraignment and all the way through, she's still sticking with these lies. At the arraignment, what I also found interesting was that they were interviewing Gypsy's father, and he had said that at the arraignment, that was the first time that they had seen her in over 12 years. And everybody in the courtroom, when she walked into the courtroom, everybody was just shocked that she was walking into the courtroom, including her family, the reporters. Everybody there was like, how is this happening? What is going on? So she kept sticking to that original story. Her parents would visit her in the jail. She was sticking to that story. She was right onto that story. So then it progressed on. They were doing an interview with her public defender, with her family, and apparently at one point the public defender and her parents actually did a walkthrough through the house. They went into the house, and I think her father, his big thing was he wanted to go in there and just, get any of her personal belongings out of there, that kind of thing. But apparently Dee Dee was a huge hoarder. The house was just disgusting. It was a huge mess. But they did say the only thing that was actually not a mess was the medicine cabinet. Everything was perfectly in place. It was all organized. But what I found interesting, something they found it, which I found interesting, that the police did not confiscate this, but in the medicine cabinet, there was a stolen prescription pad from the hospital. So Dee Dee had a prescription pad. She could do whatever she wanted to. So I found that interesting that the cops didn't actually, confiscate that as part of their investigation. But so that was found in the house. And we discussed this in the last video, that walkthrough pre-murder video that Gypsy had made. She did a walkthrough to the house so Nicholas would know where to go, and then the one where she's standing over the bed, doing this stabbing motion. Well, the public defender got that evidence from the prosecution, and he's like, oh boy, this is not good. If we go to trial, she is going to spend the rest of her life in jail. I need to come up with something else. So he talked to Gypsy, he talked to the parents, and what they came up with was, all right, let me approach the state and see if I can come up with some sort of plea deal. Now, what I found, all right, I'm just going to go through it here. So Gypsy was, okay, see what you could do for a plea deal. And while he was working on that, her only concern was, how much time am I going to get? And she's going through her head, if I get 20 years, I'm going to be this old. If I get 50 years, I'm going to be this old. And that's all that was going through her head. But what they came up with was a 10-year prison sentence, which you know, we all know she got 10 years eligible for parole after 8, so she basically served 8.5 years in prison upon her release. So that's where it sort of ended. It also showed a little clip of her testifying at Nicholas's trial, where she actually did come clean and say, I planned this was my idea, for whatever that's worth. She did do that at his court hearing, but we all know he got convicted, life in prison without the possibility of parole. So that's what that story of the crime was part of it. Now the other part of it was her big secret, which was her engagement to Ryan. So we all know, you know, sort of how that happened. She walked through it a little bit more. Apparently, you know, we know that he initially wrote her on a, I don't know if you want to call it a dare, but his one friend wrote to the Tiger King, and he wrote to Gypsy because he thought she was pretty and gorgeous. And all right, so we all know that. So the first meeting was 4 hours long. Which seems like a long time. I didn't know they did 4-hour meetings in prison, but apparently they did at this one. So after that meeting, Gypsy broke up with her boyfriend to be with Ryan. And throughout this whole thing, they're interviewing Ryan, and at one point he said he approached his mom about it. His mom didn't like it. She was like, "Why are you dealing with this person in jail?" And he proposed on the third visit. The third time he visited her, he proposed to her. He snuck a ring in on his chain, and they got engaged. Apparently, he wears a ring, or he was wearing a ring before they got married. I'm sure he wears a ring now that they're married, but he was wearing a ring before that that Gypsy had picked out of a catalog, so he was wearing that even before they got married. But one thing I did find interesting is that Ryan thought of himself as Prince Charming for Gypsy, which, okay, dude, if that's what you think, good for you. They also did some, they showed some, well, didn't show, they played some of the phone conversations between Gypsy and Ryan, and listening to him talk I just found it creepy, but, so that was, and one more interesting piece of information that I didn't know is that apparently before Gypsy got out of prison, Ryan was living with his mother, helping her raise his nephew. So that was what he was doing beforehand. Now I'm assuming the next episode, which is the last episode, is going to get into the whole Ryan engagement, wedding, all that stuff. But that was, in a nutshell, what episode 5 was all about. Your thoughts? If you have any at all, I'm sure you don't.
Well, first off, it was all I could do not to sing the song from Pretty Little Liars. You ever hear, got a secret, can you keep it? And all I could think of was, two could keep a secret if one of us is dead, right? Okay, so I have a few thoughts. My first thought was, the first thing that struck me about the episode was when they interviewed Nicholas Godejean. And you could just tell the dude is just honest. Like, you could tell he's telling the truth. And if he's on the spectrum with a lower IQ, I could see that happening. Like, a lot of people on the spectrum are just brutally honest, or they live in a fantasy world, one or the other. Well, it seemed like he did live in a fantasy world, but when the cops talked to him, then he was honest.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Right. Gypsy, it seemed like she lived in a fantasy world and lied to the cops. Okay.
And the interviewer didn't even know what to do. He was like, and like, we know that. And he just kept going. He was like,
yeah.
She was like, I can't believe this dude is just spilling it all.
There's a lot of crazy things out there too about whether or not he's going to speak out. I can't get to the bottom of it. I'm down the rabbit hole again. I think there's one YouTuber that he's going to speak out with, but only that person. And according to them, it's not yet. So I guess we all have to wait.
Well, he did say only when he's ready.
When he's ready. So like we basically have to wait around for this, I guess. So that, I don't understand that.
He has the rest of his life, so he may be waiting a while.
Another thing that's strange is that he did it for her, and she did it for her too. I find that very amusing. Like, yeah, apparently though, with Ryan, she has real true love that, she didn't have with Nick, but, the love where you kill your mom together. They don't apparently have that love.
And they knew right away. Right after that first 4-hour meeting, they knew.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Oh, they knew. Oh, yeah. Well, she knew what he wrote to her. I mean, she had 200 men to choose from. He was the one.
He was the one.
We also did a video about this, about how we felt about it when he, yeah. So if you want to go back and watch that, feel free. It's just, I find him, he just looks very physically uncomfortable. I'm assuming it's his weight. He's very sweaty, which I'm assuming is the fact that they're, I hear Louisiana, are they in Louisiana?
Louisiana, probably very hot.
Yeah, I hear it's super hot out there.
I'm sure it's very hot and humid.
And then the whole thing about like how he's talking about how she's cute and stuff and all that.
That's, yeah, that part, I guess you can give him the benefit of the doubt that he thought she was cute when he knew she was 20 something.
Right.
But if they're going back to that documentary that was on whatever state, Netflix or whatever, that Netflix documentary, and she was a kid in that.
Yeah.
So if he's thinking she's cute from that, that's just super creepy. If he's thinking she's cute after the arrest and she's presenting herself as an adult, okay, to each his own. But you just don't know, and he comes across super creepy to me, I just don't know where he's coming from. I just don't know.
Another thing I find interesting is that they said that Dee Dee was a hoarder. Okay, so I don't know about any of you out there, but I have watched a lot of hoarders episodes, even though they make me want to throw up, and I can't take it when like their cat's like dead in the corner and they don't know their cat died. That freaks me out. If you've watched any hoarder episodes, you know what I'm talking about. But those hoarders on those episodes, everything was in shambles. The whole house was a wreck. But her medicine cabinet was,
totally organized.
So to me that means she didn't want Gypsy in there. And obviously she could have controlled her hoarding if she could keep that. Another thing that really, and of course it all goes back to the Watts case because that's my favorite and I'm crazy about it. But if any of you follow the Watts case and you really follow it like me and you're a little crazy, you know that the house was perfect except for Shanann's office. That was a mess. So I kept, those things kept sticking in my mind because that's what I do. My mind is just true crime all the time and that's what my head's filled with. But that struck me as very interesting having watched episodes of Hoarders because everything's just a wreck. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and then it was so creepy, like when Gypsy was making the video where she points to the mother and she's like this is the video, this is literally the video. And just the mess in the room. Yeah. Oh Lord, that just would oh my God, I can't even, yeah. And then poor Gypsy couldn't even get up and clean because she had to act like she was disabled. I don't know. The whole thing is just bizarre. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And I keep saying it, the more I watch her talk and tell us her story, the less likable she is. I don't know. And same with the parents. I'm sorry, but
you don't see your kid for 12
years and then you're shocked she can walk, but yet then they're showing pictures of Gypsy when she was younger with the dad climbing trees. And why wouldn't any person okay, she's fine when she's here, but when she's there, she's not.
And we've read your comments, and I absolutely agree. He still can't wrap his head around this. And somebody, one of our viewers and I went back and forth in the comments. These people are good. They are good at what they do. Heck, she was writing prescriptions. She stole a prescription pad. So, I mean, if she could get one over on a doctor who doesn't know her, of course she's going to manipulate her own family members. You know what I mean? I know it drives you crazy,
It does.
And I know.
As a father, it just does. I don't know.
And it's very hard to wrap your head around in it. But if you've dealt with somebody like her, like I've seen in the comments, and like I have in my life, you really realize that, they're good at what they do. That's how they get away with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They wouldn't have had a free life flight.
No,
they wouldn't have had that cute little dollhouse that they built for them with that ramp. If she wasn't good at what she did, there would be no Gypsy Rose story.
And that's what the reporter said when she's like, there's something going on over at this house, and then they figured out what house it was. She's like, oh, this is the house with the Habitat for Humanity, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, all this other stuff. So yeah, the reporter everybody was just taken in.
And the parents and Gypsy's dad and I think is it Christy?
Christy's stepmother.
They truly did seem shocked when they went to that house.
Yes.
Yeah, like, and then the fact that, you know, Gypsy walked and stuff, like, you could tell I really think Dee Dee had one over on them. You could tell, like, she was very, very shocked. I mean, I'm sorry, not Dee Dee, but the parents, Gypsy's dad and Christy, were very, very shocked. So any last thoughts as we wrap this up?
No, it just keeps, to me, she just needs to stop with the public, start mending her story, mending her, that's not the word I'm looking for. She needs to start giving. So get out of the public limelight, get off of TikTok, get off of YouTube, stop making these stupid documentaries, and go out and try to make amends for what you've done. And the only way she's going to be able to do that is possibly help people that are in the situation that she was in, and bring the public, you know, make public awareness, that kind of stuff, because this is just not putting her in a good light. And it's, the more you hear, it's like the more you question, and she just needs to go away and start helping and start giving back. That's what she can do at this point.
And with child abuse and neglect being what it is today, and there's, I mean, it's just, if you follow true crime like I do obsessively, it's just case after case. I mean, we have Audrey Cunningham lately, we have Madeline Soto, and all, you know, cases of people close to the family abusing the children. You know, I mean, sexual abuse, and it's a little bit different than the whole thing with Gypsy because it's not factitious disorder, but abuse and neglect, or abuse and neglect, you know, whatever you call it. And she could be out there talking about these things and calling attention to these issues, right, instead of, you know, talking about how the D is fire on TikTok. She has she has a story to offer the world that is very, it's not like anybody's story. No. It is her own story. It is like one in a billion probably, her story. She should be out there, you know, doing things for the
And I thought she was doing that when they did that interview with her on The View. The majority of that interview was actually her being real, talking about her story, telling how she wants to help other people in this situation, to bring public awareness to this. And then about halfway, 3/4 of the way through, it went off the rails. Like, oh, there's Ryan in the audience. Let's, you know, now let's just make this stupid again. Right. You know, so she needs to get away from the stupid and start doing the good.
Yeah, and this is a series, so we really don't have, you know, a ton of commentary, because we've been commenting about this since New Year's Eve. So when the whole Ryan Anderson thing came out. So, right. But that's our thoughts. You know, share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to interact with you. We're trying to switch up our format a little bit, so bear with us. Keep watching. We might surprise you. I think you'll be surprised if you keep watching. We're figuring it out.
Yes, we are.
And now the wine.
The wine. And I'm going to have you pronounce it.
Okay. This is Benigna's. I'm going to say it right. This is Benigna's Traminette. This is out from near Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We purchased it at the Bloomsburg Fair. A lot of the wineries will go to, if you go to the Bloomsburg Fair, a lot of the wineries, local wineries will be at the Bloomsburg Fair. You can get free samples. You can buy your wine there. You can purchase your wine, go eat all your crappy food at the Bloomsburg Fair that is amazingly delicious, and then go pick up your wine. Right. So if you are into the Bloomsburg Fair and into wine, I didn't know if you probably don't know, if maybe you don't know that you can get wine at the Bloomsburg Fair and a lot of other alcohol.
The biggest fair around here.
It's the big deal
in Pennsylvania. This is a Traminette, which for us is sort of hit and miss. A lot of times the Traminettes, at least to me anyway, are just too flowery. There's too much of that kind of a hint to it.
Or this is
delicious. Or too sweet. This is delicious. This is done perfectly.
This is a good one, yeah. And this Traminette is a hybrid grape, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes. Was it developed? I think it might have been developed by Cornell.
I think it was.
It was developed by Cornell.
Yeah, Cornell University has developed a lot of the grapes that are used for wine.
You learn a lot when you're wine tasting and you start out sober and you remember the few things that they told you, and then you end up not remembering anything.
Yeah, then it all goes off the rails.
And purchasing wine that you thought tasted good when you'd already been tasting.
Exactly.
So that'll happen. But this is a great Traminette. So if you're into Traminette And I think Traminette's kind of specific to our area, right?
It is,
yeah, it's hard to
yeah.
get Traminette elsewhere, so it's
Right.
more, it grows more in the Northeast region, correct?
Yes.
So, if you get a chance to import some, if you don't live in the Northeast region, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised if you get the right kind.
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
So again, it's hit and miss with Traminette,
Yeah.
just for my flavor profile anyway. But this one is really good.
Yeah, they put flowers in for the finish, and sometimes it'll be super flowery. This is
Yeah.
not. It's very good.
Right.
But if you like flowers and you like the taste of flowers, I know a lot of people.
Which a lot of people do.
They
so.
put flowers in their salad and
Yeah.
things like that. You would really like Traminette.
Yes. All right.
So,
Till next time.
see you next time.